Okay, today's brew day is a Düsseldorf Alt. This one's marked off for a 10 gallon, but I'm going to go ahead and scale it down for a 5 gallon batch today. Be using about 83% Pilsner, 12% Dark Munich, 3.6% of the Carafa 2, and 1.3% of pale chocolate. I'm going to be using exclusively Spalt hops these today. Targeting about 35-ish IBUs on this one, and we're going to be using the Düsseldorf Alt yeast, actually, from White Labs, which is the equivalent of Y yeast German Ale 1007. So yeah, target today is going to be about a 1047 start gravity, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Alright, so last brew day when I was brewing up with Gunnar, I noticed when I was opening up the valve for one of the pumps. Now this is on the boil kettle, so on the boil kettle after every brew day I go ahead and cycle through a lot of PBW, and then after the PBW recirculates for about 20-30 minutes, then I'll go ahead and flush that out. And then I immediately follow it up with a star sand rinse through all of the tubing, through the pump, through the counterflow chiller and all that. And what I noticed is halfway during the brew day when I was adjusting the valve, there was actually some drippage coming out of the valve here itself. And so what I've come to discover, actually Gunnar helped me figure this out, but you can see there's actually cracks in the seal now. So these red silicone seals crack, and I'm guessing that this has to do with the PBW and the star sand follow-up. So basically I gotta go ahead and reorder some of these so that I don't have those leaks anymore while I'm recirculating the mash, or while I'm transferring from the boil kettle or doing the recirculation for the whirlpool. Right, it was during the whirlpool recirculation where I was unscrewing this, and it started to leak out through the faceplate of the Riptide pump. So yeah, that I'm not very happy about. And with the upgrade kit, they went ahead and gave us all sorts of stuff, adapters for all of the different pumps and stuff, but didn't even bother to throw in any extra seals, which I think is pretty sad, actually. So I'm going to go ahead, since I don't adjust the flow on the water so much, and I'm really not too terribly worried about water dripping on my floor. I don't want to lose that sweet wort. So what I'll do for today's brew day is I'll just swap these out, put this one in the water kettle, and put the other one that has good seals in it into the wort kettle, or the wort pump. But there you go. about it. That's brew day done and dusted. Everything is put away now. The beer is in the fermenter. Yeast is pitched. Temperature control is set on the fermentation chamber. And so how did it go? At the end of the day, I sort of got a little bit caught up in what I was doing at the very end of the boil, which basically was getting the beer into the fermenter and then kind of trying to decide about how I wanted to handle it. There wasn't many options, but basically at the end of the day, the options were, do I want to go ahead and throw in some DME in order to bring up that original gravity? And the reason because is my original gravity stopped off at 1041. So here it is inside in the hydrometer cylinder. Here you go. So you can see for Düsseldorf, this is way too dark for a Düsseldorf AltBier. But you know what? It was totally my fault. I had two versions of the recipe lying beside each other. One was the 10-gallon, one was the 5-gallon. As you can imagine, there was a mistake. I read off one of the ingredient amounts from the 10-gallon batch. Can you guess which one? Yeah, it was the very last one. It was the pale chocolate. So instead of only putting 60 grams of pale chocolate, I ended up putting in, I think it was 120 according to the 10-gallon recipe. And so it came out much, much darker than I had anticipated. But you know what? I just decided to go ahead and roll with it. When I was filling up for the boil, when I was sparging, the pre-boil volume went up to 9.3 gallons, which is where it was supposed to be according to Beersmith. I did not check the gravity like I normally do for the entire volume as it's being filled up, so I can make sure that I hit my target gravity rather than my target volume. But today I really wasn't worried about it. My volume was at 9.3 gallons, but my gravity was only 1033. So it was much, much lower than I had anticipated. So basically, I just decided to go ahead and roll with it. I figured, you know what, let's go with the lower ABV beer, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But I did turn up the PID to have a more aggressive boil than I normally do. So then I came off and at the end ended up with 1041. But you know what, I'm totally happy with that. The color's a little bit darker than it should be. Original gravity is lower than it should be. You know what, big deal. At the end of the day, I'm still gonna have beer. I'm really gonna be interested to see what the yeast brings to this beer, right? Let's go ahead and just take a little taste. Actually, I haven't had a taste of this yet, so I'll be interested to see what it tastes like. All right, it's nice, light, obviously sweet at this point. And without saying balanced, well, there I said it, you know, there's not a lot of bitterness. And of course I can see how that sweetness is going to drop off. So I'm really kind of hoping that that's going to come out in a really nice balanced beer. Not a lot of bitterness to it, but there's just enough, I think. Just enough. It's going to be great. I used the spalt hops that I got from, well, the 5 kilo bags that I had. So I snipped that open, and that's where I used the hops from. So it was a 2015 bag, but it was still airtight from the nitrogen. The hops were green, they smelled great, and seems like they did what they were supposed to do. And yeah, so that's it for the hops. So I had upped my losses a little bit, so I had some extra wort left over. And let me show you that. So I had all the Brett's, the dregs from all the Brett's fermentation, and I went ahead and I've been saving those actually for, well, a couple months now. And what I did was I, you know, collected some extra leftover wort. It's almost a gallon, and then I pitched the all the Brett strains in here. So I'm gonna have Düsseldorf Alt yeast fermented beer, and then I will have a Brett version of it as well. So really looking forward to see how that turns out. So all in all, not the best brew day I've ever had, which basically seems to sum up some of the brew days I've had recently. I think the last 4 or 5 brews just haven't come out exactly the way I had hoped. So I need to go back and really focus in on my recipe design and really concentrate on what it is my target is rather than going at it somewhat haphazardly. But yeah, that's it. That's this brew day. I'll of course let you guys know how it comes out when the fermentation is finished. And that's it. Thanks a lot for stopping in. I really appreciate it. Cheers, everyone.